Well, hi, everyone, and welcome into another edition of Navigating Trump 2.0. This is the show that takes a look at the week that was in the nation's capital through the lens of the second Trump administration. Joining me, as he does every week here on the podcast, faithfully, wonderfully, intelligently,
Whoa.
CBN News chief political analyst David Brody. David, how are you this fine day, sir?
I'm doing great. I thought you were, so you're done with the adjectives. Please continue on. I think we have plenty of time. Thank you. Thank you, John.
Yeah.
Great to see you.
Good to see you too. I had some more written down, but I lost them on another sheet of paper. So
Okay.
let's get into the meat of the show while we're here. And I did want to start off the top of the show as we are recording here on Thursday afternoon with the news that came out at the briefing on Thursday. Some health issues with President Trump. The White House announced that he's been diagnosed with something called chronic venous insufficiency. It's a condition where veins have trouble sending blood from the legs back to the heart, often due to damaged valves. We've seen, David, over the last couple of days, it looked like there was some bruising on the president's hand that was covered up with some concealer, and also some pictures that appeared to show some swelling in his legs. Are there any other details, anything else, any other light you can shed on this?
Well, other than the fact that everything seems to be, how do I say this, kind of A-OK, ... other than that, I mean, obviously there's a medical condition that the president has. It's said to be minor. We don't have any, I should say, evidence. There's nothing in that report that suggests that there are any blockages or any sort of a real problem. Obviously, if that's not taken care of and medicated, given medicine for it, it could get worse. But we understand that he's going to be okay. And, he's 78 years old. He goes around like the Energizer Bunny, and he has all of this. It's impressive. So nothing earth shattering, but nevertheless, something to keep an eye on for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And we will keep an eye on that here as we continue on through Navigating Trump 2.0. All right, let's talk about the case, the story that simply won't go away for the president as much as he would like for it to go away. This Jeffrey Epstein story, David, we touched on it last week. I'm kind of surprised that we are still talking about it here a week later, but I think the president has certainly tried to get his base's attention off of the Jeffrey Epstein saga. But now Democrats are jumping into the fray. They are trying to take advantage of what they see as an opportunity, this potential wedge between the president and some of his MAGA supporters who were really insistent on the DOJ when they got into power in the second Trump administration, releasing everything having to do with Jeffrey Epstein. So, David, a week later, we talked about this a little bit last week. Where do you think things stand right now between Trump and his base 1 week after?
2 words, not good. Not good at all. That would be 4 words, actually, now that I actually extrapolate all that out. But there's a lot to unpack. Here's the thing, John. First of all, I think we will be talking about this just as much next week at this same time on this same Bat channel, if Pam Bondi doesn't come out and address some of the questions that are still out there. This has been a PR strategy nightmare. They must have missed PR and strategy 101, because this is not how you go about trying to diffuse a crisis. And President Trump, let's be honest, he's made it worse by going right after MAGA. Now, is he ticked off at MAGA? Yeah, he is. And I say at MAGA. Let's be clear. Maybe I should back up and clarify when I say MAGA. 5%, 10% at the most, maybe 3% of MAGA. This isn't MAGA writ large, but it's very vocal MAGA. And Epstein is their line in the sand for that 5 to 10%. Roughly. I don't have any empirical data on that, but my spidey sense tells me that this is a small fracture of MAGA. Not that all of MAGA doesn't care about Epstein. They do. But I'm talking about the percent that's about 5-10% is very vocal, and it is their line on the sand, and they'll walk away over this issue. Most of MAGA is not going to walk away from Trump on this. So let's just be clear on that. But 5 to 10% could be a big difference. We can get into the political ramifications of that if you want. In a moment. But look, until Bondi does something and clears some of these things, these questions up, I think we're still going to be talking about it. Now, one thing she could do in some sort of press conference, my sense of it, John, is by this time next week, she will have had some sort of press avail, press conference, call it whatever you want. I think she's going to be the one to take the lead on this. And I think what she needs to do, and what she probably will do, is say that it's time to redact unredact the redacted FBI affidavits that these judges have the power to do in certain courts across the country, these two courts across the country. That is where names, the so-called list, for the most part, exist in those FBI affidavits. Now, I say the list. Let's be clear here. I think we're talking semantics when we talk list, right? MAGA had always said, we want to see the list, like it's out there in a PDF document and it's all listed out by Jeffrey Epstein. My sources are telling me that's not true. There is no PDF straight list. It's a bunch of names. Many of them have already been out there, Prince Andrew and others. And then there are a few more, some more, that are in those FBI affidavits that have been redacted by those judges to protect the accusers, actually, who came forward with these names. So what Pam Bondi can do is say to the courts, please, Judge X and Judge Y, I don't have their names in front of me, go ahead and please, we would like you to unredact the information in those FBI affidavits. Pam Bondi does not have the power to do it herself. But the question, John, really is why they knew this a week ago.
Yeah.
But why in the world did they not do this earlier? I don't have an answer for you on that, other than it's just a bungled a bungled strategy operation at this point. But that's one of the things she could do, John.
It's very confounding. And how the White House is handling this and how the president has been talking about this is confounding, because it doesn't make sense on a few different levels here. And the first is the president this week seemed to be starting to say that these Epstein files were created by Democrats who were in office, by the Biden administration and the Biden DOJ. And if that were the case, why wouldn't they have released the files that this particular corner of MAGA wants to see released right now? If they were damaging to Donald Trump, then they probably would have released them. But now that the Trump DOJ is in charge, they're still not releasing them. And I just, wouldn't you sit back and you realize, listen, if the people we voted in and the people who had vocally said that we wanted to release the files are now in there, and they're now seeing that these files, that they're closing the book on this case. I don't understand what it is you're looking to see here. I mean, it's none of this is squaring up, and I think that's what's really confusing to those of us who haven't been immersed in this story from the get-go.
Well, right. And then there's another layer to this as well, the transparency aspect to it, right? So this is the most transparent administration in a very long time, if not in history, according to the supporters of this administration, except for this issue. Doesn't make sense. How can you be fully transparent, but all of a sudden deciding to clam up? I think on the 700 Club today, I kind of likened it to, Pam Bondi saying, it's kind of like Pam Bondi saying, hey, we got George Clooney coming to the premiere, right? For 3 months, she said, George Clooney's coming to the premiere. And instead, it becomes womp womp, Dom DeLuise shows up. And everybody's like, wait, what? You promised Clooney. And instead, we got Dom DeLuise. So there's a transparency issue here. And so let's go there and let's talk about this specifically. There's a lot of folks that believe that Trump may be in those files. And I'll be honest with you. I think the way they've handled this, it makes it look like they've got something to hide. That's the problem here. I'm not saying Trump's in the files. Go ahead. I'm not saying that.
But I was going to say, but see, that's where none of this connects. If Trump's name was in the files, why wouldn't the Biden administration have released them?
Yeah, because I think the feeling goes, at least among MAGA, the folks in MAGA that I'm talking to, is that Democrats and other, whether it be Bill Clinton, we've heard rumors about that, and others would have been in there as well. And so if you release the whole thing, you're getting Trump, but you're getting a whole lot of other people too. And I'm not sure they wanted to do that. So that's what MAGA thinks in terms of the answer to that question. Look, I don't know what to make of it, but this is not going away. Look, I understand why President Trump is ticked. I just think that, taking out on MAGA obviously is not the way to go. But I understand that he's like, look, for 6+ months, we've been killing it. We're undefeated, and not that Trump would ever admit they fumbled the ball, but they did fumble the ball. And so it's like, okay, so you have a star running back, once again, analogy, right? Who's got 30 touchdowns on the season. Wow, what a star running back. But he fumbles at the goal line in the playoffs in the divisional round. And you're like, oh gosh, well, you're going to be remembered for that. And it's like, that's what Trump's saying here. It's like, listen, can we not worry about so much about the fumble at the goal line in the divisional playoffs? What about my 30 rushing touchdowns as the star quarterback for MAGA? So I get it, but this whole thing is just what a nightmare.
Yeah, it feels like an unforced error because the Trump administration is doing many of the things that his supporters and his voters wanted him to do when he got into office. I mean, they're not batting 1,000 by any stretch of the imagination, but on the whole, you get that big beautiful bill passed, and it has a lot of the things that the Trump administration wanted. The next topic we're going to talk about, the rescissions.
Real quick.
There's yeah, please.
I know you want to go into the next topic. Let me just say one last thing to button up Epstein. He used the word hoax. President Trump used the word hoax. A lot of people are like, wait, what hoax exactly? My understanding is what he means by hoax and why MAGA is buying into the hoax is that MAGA has always believed there's this list. And Trump is basically saying there is no list. Bondi is saying there's no list. Bongino, Cash Patel, there is no list. So stop buying into the quote hoax, the Jeffrey Epstein hoax that there's this list. Now, having said that, and the reason he brings Democrats into it is because he thinks that MAGA, along with Democrats, are continuing to push this. And he's right in the sense that MAGA is continuing to push it, and Democrats are politically continuing to push it. And he just thinks that it's just ridiculous that everybody's doing so. So I don't know.
Well, we'll see. Again, I think you're right. I think you're right. This isn't going away. And Pam Bondi still looks like we were talking last week. Was she in danger of losing her job? The president came out pretty forcefully this week and seemed to really still be in her corner.
Yeah, let me just here's another button. This is my second button up of this topic that never goes away. My sense of it, John, is that I think she's safe for now. I get a sense that, give it 6 months, maybe by the end of the year, I think she'll probably be gone. That Trump's MO, and we saw this with Mike Waltz, right? The national security advisor, right? About the whole signal chat stuff. Like, he didn't fire him in the moment, but a couple months later, he's like, okay, we want you to be UN ambassador, U.S. ambassador to UN. Yeah. So, kind of move on to something else. And I feel like that's going to happen with Pam Bondi here, because this is on her because she got ahead of the skis and she promised George Clooney back to Dom DeLuise. You know the deal.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see how that shakes out here over the next week. The rescissions package that passed the Senate on Thursday was an interesting victory for the president and the Trump administration, calling back $9 billion in previously agreed to spending, specifically federal money that was going to public broadcasting and different areas of foreign aid. I thought this was an interesting exchange between a reporter and Caroline Levitt at the briefing on Thursday, and I wanted to get your thoughts on this thought. A reporter asked, and I apologize, I didn't see who it was, why would any Democrat vote for a bipartisan spending bill with Republicans? And I think if the roles were reversed, you could say, why would a Republican vote in a bipartisan way with Democrats on a spending bill if the other party can turn around and claw back the money the next day, the next week, the next month, the next year, whatever it happens to be? And Levitt said, look, $9 billion worth of crap that was in our federal funding that is not being rescinded. That's a good thing for the American people. And I get what she's saying. This is $9 billion that they felt was being wasted. Agree, disagree with that. They had the ability to go to Congress and say, we want to get this money back. And they were able to curry enough Republican senators to agree with the White House on pulling back this $9 billion in funds. But my question to you is, are rescissions the death of bipartisan budget deals moving forward?
Well, here's the answer to that. Yes, but they were already dead.
They're
without
already
the
dead.
Rescission. I mean, these people. I mean, it's continuing resolution after continuing resolution, and plus the budget process has been hijacked by both parties. So when Democrats get in control, they'll do budget reconciliation. They don't care. They don't give a rip about Republicans, and vice versa. So, no, look, I think what's interesting here, and honestly historic and momentous, is that the Senate and soon to be the House passed it. Now they got to kind of go back and agree to the changes and it'll eventually be passed, which is, this doesn't happen. I mean, when in Washington do they say, you know what, here's some money we spent. Oh, actually, you know what, we haven't spent it yet, so we're going to take that money back. When does that ever happen in Washington? Like, the answer is never. So, I mean, that's historic in and of itself. It's only $9 billion. There's nothing. There's a drop in the bucket, not even a half a drop in the bucket. But it's something, and it's a signal that more rescission packages are on the way, because this is the way to codify a lot of those cuts that Elon Musk wanted and the Doge team wanted. But beyond all of that, this is a way to satisfy many of those fiscal hawks and on the Freedom Caucus side, who had to hold their nose and vote for the big beautiful bill because they were told that rescission packages were coming in the future that would cut back on some of this spending. So to be continued. But this is the rescissions is going to be a word that people are going to hear often.
Ukraine, Russia latest, David. That was also in the news as the week has gone along. We're still stuck in the muck of this Ukraine war, and clearly the president is frustrated. We've been hearing him voice his frustration, mostly at Vladimir Putin now over the last couple of weeks, and that continued this week. The president on Monday, as he was speaking with NATO Secretary Rutte at the White House, announcing a 50-day deadline for Russia to stop its attacks on Ukraine, or else they would start to implement secondary tariffs, which means they would be implementing steep tariffs on trading partners of Russia in an attempt to isolate the Russian regime and Vladimir Putin. Was this a strong signal by the president to Russia to knock it off? Or is this something that Russia will, like they've done with a lot of things, both in the Biden administration and now here so far in the Trump administration, Putin just kind of laugh off?
Yeah. And as a matter of fact, we are getting word now that Putin is not only laughing off, but saying no deal. It's kind of like, what was that? Deal or no deal.
Deal or no
when
deal,
you hit the deal or no deal, he hit the no deal button. So that according to Putin, he's saying no, we're not agreeing to the 50-day ceasefire. So you can take your sanctions and do what you want with them, Mr. President, but we're not abiding by that. So that tells me a couple of things. First of all, number one, the sanctions are not going to. Are they going to affect Russia? Yeah, but that's not what's really going to bring Putin anywhere near the table. I think the only thing that could potentially bring him to the table would be if China somehow, in essence, kind of dries up some of the money coming into Russia, which they're not going to do. But, they buy a lot of fuel from Russia, because the truth of the matter is Putin needs China big time. He needs the money to fund the war. And if that money dries up from China, then it's good night, Vladimir. But that's not going to happen, because China's on record now saying that in essence they need Russia to stay the course. So because of that, and because wait for it, Vladimir Putin wants to take over Ukraine. I don't think this is anytime soon. As a matter of fact, and I've said this, John, you know this on the podcast. Cue up the 3/4-inch tape from 1982. But I'm telling you that indeed what I said a while back is now happening, which is I don't believe Putin ever had any desire to have any sort of ceasefire. No. He has taken, 18, 20, 22%, whatever it is, of Ukraine, especially in the east. He's now bombing Kyiv. He's bombing Lviv over on the west. I mean, he's looking at taking all of Ukraine, and he will wait this out. Even if he has to wait past President Trump leaving office, whatever it takes, I don't see Putin wanting a deal here whatsoever.
What do you anticipate? And I know you can't, there's no crystal ball, and trying to read, President Trump's mind is oftentimes a fruitless exercise. But what do you think the next step would be? These 50 days go by, these sanctions go into place, or they call them tariffs go into place. They don't force Putin's hand. What's next in the drawer for the president to reach out and to try to use? Because it seems like the carrots are gone. He's run out of carrots, and now we're starting to pull out the hammers.
Right. And I think that's your answer. Pull out some more hammers. Go get them, boys. And what I mean by that specifically is we already saw President Trump say, you know what, we'll sell NATO these weapons, these Patriot missiles, and you'll pay for it. U.S. taxpayer won't pay for it, but you guys will need to pay for it. So I think he'll try to get Europe to do more. We'll send more weapons, not to Ukraine, but to NATO. But come on, wink, wink. We all know the deal. Yeah. And so my guess is there'll be a more robust Hammer-esque effort by the Trump administration to say, okay, well, if Putin has no desire to negotiate, then it's time to go win a war. And whether or not Ukraine can do that, that remains to be seen. But maybe they can take back some of that territory that Russia has captured, potentially. I don't know. I'm not a war game guy. But if for some reason Vladimir Putin sees, well, his 22% of Ukraine has gone down to 19% and dropping, that might bring him to the negotiating table. But other than that, I don't know, John. I don't see it.
All right, last thing here to finish up the show, and the UK is doing something interesting, David, and I wanted to get your thoughts on this. I'm really, I think I know how I feel about this. The UK announced that it would soon allow make 16 years old to be the age of national voting elections. So they would drop the age to vote from 18 to 16 years old in the UK to vote in national elections. Here in the United States, we also have an age limit of 18 years old in order to vote. What do you think of this idea in the UK? Is this something that you would be comfortable with? If 16, 17-year-olds were able to go to the polls and vote for members of Congress, vote for the president, and even vote for, city elections, county elections, and the like?
Well, going from the inflection of your voice, John, I think I know where you stand on this, and I'm probably going to be agreeing with you if I'm correct in my assumption of how you're going to come down on this, which is you got to be freaking kidding me. Yeah. 16-year-olds? Absolutely not. I mean, I guess we can make the joke about what 16-year-olds are doing, but they're not paying attention too much to politics. But I will say this: there are a couple problems here. First of all, not good for conservatives, because when you're younger, how do I say that? I want to be nice. I want to say you have diminished capacity to think, but I don't want to say that, but I just did. No, my point is that you're a little bit more liberal, if you will, during that time. You're exploring lots of different things, and let's be honest, and this is a fact, your brain isn't fully developed. Okay.
That's right.
Then again, at 65, sometimes your brain's not fully developed, but that's a separate issue. But like biologically, it's true. Your brain is not fully developed. So, why wouldn't liberals, by the way, whether it be in the UK or here, want that, right? More, whatever, it's not be Gen Z. What would they be? Gen Alpha? I think they're Gen Alpha. To go ahead and vote, because my guess is that it'll skew left. That's just a guess on my part. So I think it's a horrible idea. Where are you, John, on this? Where are you? Am I right?
No, I agree with you. I think I would say this too. I don't know that there would be a whole lot more votes to the left as opposed to the right, because I think one of the things that you would see is a lot of 16 and 17-year-olds, they get their political opinions based on what their parents' political opinions are. And one of the surest ways that we have of predicting presidential elections is whenever they do polls of elementary school students and middle school students. Who do you think is going to win the presidency? They're repeating what they hear their parents say. Right. And so oftentimes it mirrors the results because it's a direct reflection off of the parents. Now, that's not the case for every 16-year-old. There's a lot of 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds in rebellion of their parents. It's part of that age group. And so that wouldn't obviously be a one-to-one situation. But I do think there would be a fair amount of that. I do agree if there was a skewing, it probably would tend to skew left. We do know that left-leaning voters are typically younger, and that as people age, their views typically become a little bit more conservative. And so that's why it would never fly in the United States. Congress would never agree. It's too partisan, and the margins are too small for any kind of radical change like that to happen. That's why Puerto Rico will never become a state, at least for the foreseeable future that we can see. Because any perceived advantage that's given to one party or the other, there's enough opposition to prevent it from happening.
Yeah, and here's another part of the problem, and this is the sad state of where we are in America today. Let's be honest. If we were having this conversation, it was navigating Trump 2.0 in 1825, and let's go back in the time machine, we would say, well, yeah, absolutely. I think so. I think that might not be a bad idea. Why? Because civics was alive back then. Because because there was a maturity back then. And there was a love of America a lot more back then than there is today. There was people back then cared a lot more. I'm not saying people don't care about our country today, but back then, at that age, it was it was different. It was a way of life. You understood your community. You understood what was going on. You understood your fellow man, your neighbor. You understood the blood shed for this country coming out of the American or the Revolutionary War. So I think in 1825, this is a different conversation, but we're in 2025. So 200 years later, we have absolutely no clue in this country in terms of teaching kids civics, teaching them American history. I mean, if you're going to vote, you might want to have a clue before you vote. And I don't even mean on the issues. I just mean about how democracy the republic works. And we don't have that today. So that's another big reason why I have a problem with it. Let's get our civics in order. Let's figure out how we get the youth back there as a base starting point, and then we can have this conversation.
And I think that 1825 point is really good too, because 16 and 17-year-olds back in those days, you didn't go to college for the most part back in those days.
Right.
Like a lot of 16 and 17-year-olds were really full-time workers, and we have over the years made it so that child labor is a thing of the past essentially. I mean, 16 and 17-year-olds now have part-time jobs, but they're working in the factories for 40, 50, 60 hours a week. And obviously I'm glad we don't have that situation anymore, but 16 and 17-year-olds were forced to grow up more quickly and be providers for the family in a lot of different ways. And so I do agree. I think there was a seriousness that, among 16 and 17-year-olds. I mean, I wasn't alive during this time, but I would imagine I'm thinking about what I know that 16 and 17-year-olds had to do to support their families, to make life work, especially in areas outside the cities. It would make sense to me that it would be a better idea back then than it is now.
And remember, Laura Ingalls from Little House on the Prairie.
That's exactly what I was thinking of.
Melissa Gilbert, she was a 16-year-old teacher back in the day. Oh, I'm sorry, that's a fictional story. No, it's not actually.
But no, it's
right?
not.
No, I know exactly. And that's I was going to get around to that. But yeah, I mean, she was a teacher back then. Okay, and whenever we'll talk about marriage at 16, 17, 18. Okay, but anyhow, we'll put that to the side. That's another Navigating Trump 2.0 topic we can talk some other time about. Why am I talking like this? I feel like I got to watch to sell you.
Nobody can hear you when you talk like that. That's
I'm
why.
mumbling. I'm literally mumbling. Yeah.
Anyway. Well, we'll leave it there for this week. This edition of Navigating Trump 2.0. David Brody, until we talk again next week, thank you so much for coming on and speaking with us here on Navigating Trump 2.0.
3 words: an absolute pleasure.
That's right.